and we're going to go ahead and get started with our speaker. And I'm about to hand things over to my friend Linda Paulus. This is a jointly sponsored event this morning with the Arts Council here at UUCD and the Forums Committee. And so I'm going to welcome Linda up to bring it on. And I can help you with that.
Got a number of materials from Christina, so I'm going to use something.
Oh, good. Could you sit right here so that
Oh,
folks,
I want to stand up.
except the folks won't be able to see you that way. Sorry.
I'll stand right here then.
Oh, yeah, actually they can see you that way.
Okay.
Shall I hold the mic for you?
No, I'll talk loud. If you can't hear me, call me out, and I'll change. Okay, looking around at materials, the Duluth, our guest is the executive director of the Duluth Art Institute. The Institute enriches daily life with dynamic, innovative visual arts programming that upholds excellence and promotes inclusive community participation. Good statement. Did you hear me well enough?
No.
Okay, I'll do it. Then I can't use both hands when I talk. But for you, I will. This young woman I saw yesterday in her traditional dress, walking down the runway, modeling for the ribbon skirt exhibit at the Tweed Museum. And the delight in that girl as she skipped a little bit and pretended she was dancing was wonderful. Also, a week ago, I spoke with Claudia Faith, who has served on the board at the Art Institute for 2 or 3 years now. And she said she has so many ideas. They're popping into her head a mile a minute. And perhaps now, of all times, that is a necessary feature. As we know, the Art Institute has had its challenges figuring out where it's going to live. Something Christina wrote. In communities where culture thrives, the arts emerge as powerful catalysts, shaping the very essence of identity and connection. From preserving tradition to forging economic prosperity, the impacts of the arts are far-reaching. The visual arts nurture creativity and critical thinking, contributing to the vitality of where we live. The arts become a dynamic force in building a stronger, more cohesive community. The result is a community that cherishes its past and actively shapes an expansive future. Cultivating Culture explores the impact of the arts through the lens of the Duluth Art Institute, illuminating its integral role in nurturing a flourishing and dynamic community. She is a member of the Bois Forte band, and from that heritage, so beautifully wore her dress yesterday and participated. She has a commitment to diversity and inclusivity, and that's a big assignment. So I give it to you.
All right.
Thank you.
I have the same shirt, by the way. Well, good morning. I will use the microphone because I think it'll be easier for all y'all who like to sit in the back. Well, thank you for having me today. I come into these moments and presentations with a plan, and then I throw the plan away because I visit and chat, and there's a couple things that have come up in my conversations that I think you are going to be very interested in hearing more about. Let me start though with the publication in your hands. This is a project of the Duluth Art Institute that came into being around 2019. We had realized that our region does not have an art magazine. And so this is our effort to amplify and bring forward visual art for folks in the Duluth area. The magazine is called Hue, and we chose that title because hue, H-U-E, like the hues of colors, we felt really amplified visually the idea about diversity, and really reminds us to push beyond our binary thinking. I want to talk about that for a second. One of the ideologies around color and hue and binary thinking is that we like to think about the Duluth Art Institute operating on a color spectrum. You have black on one end, which is all the colors, and you have white on the other end, which is none of the colors, and then in between are all of the colors. And we use this visual activity in many different ways, whether we're talking about gender and pronouns. We can be very binary, like black and white, or we can be somewhere on the spectrum in between, the hue of the human experience. We can use it when we talk about culture. Somebody can be completely immersed in their culture or not immersed in their particular culture or anywhere along the spectrum. And it's all beautiful and it's all relevant and it's all an important part of building community and really honoring the inherent dignity of everybody. And so we really like that title, Hue. And we like what we do with the cover. So you see a bunch of little circles in every one of your magazines. The cover looks different because the artwork behind the circles is different. And so we use a piece of art that's coming into the gallery for exhibition and we put it behind the circles, and hopefully that inspires you to open it up and take a look inside. So we publish this both to advertise for the Duluth Art Institute, additionally to really amplify the artists that are coming in to our space for the community. We like to highlight our classes, and we like to use this to maybe promote some bigger marketing companies to actually have an art magazine for our region. So we keep putting it out there with the idea that even though this reaches the extent of what we can afford to publish quarterly, we are hoping that some publishing firm will be like, hey, why don't we do this? And we would applaud that. So I hope you enjoy your Hue publication. These do come out quarterly, like I mentioned, and you can have it delivered to your door if you are a Duluth Art Institute member, or you can pick them up at the Institute or the Lincoln Park building where our classes are, or other places around town. So thank you for picking those up and taking a look at them. Should I show folks on camera, Meredith? Should I hold one up? Yeah. Okay. For folks in the internet land, it's going to be backwards, but this is the magazine. So I'm going to launch into a conversation with you, but I'm going to do this the way I normally do. So I'm going to start with my Anishinaabe greeting. So Bonjour Giniwa, Anamekikwe Indigenakas, Christina Indigo, Makwa Indodam, Masabi Kang Indunjaba. And so this is a phrasing that the Anishinaabe use, and maybe many folks around the country and tribal communities use. We operate in our daily life with the idea that we are connected to everything, and we want to make sure that everything that has a spirit in it whether it's walking with us or living beyond us, has the opportunity to see and understand and know whose voice is being amplified right now. So Bonjour Giniwa means hello to everyone. Anamikikwe, Indigenakaz means that is my name. Anamikikwe is the name that I came with before I was born. And so this name has carried with me for perpetuity of the life of my spirit. And you may have heard maybe sometimes about the naming ceremonies that occur within Native families. I had mine, and my name had to be found. I had a sense of what my name was, but because of removal and different things that have happened that would cause Native people to not be connected to traditions and culture, it took me a long time to find my name. My name means generally Thunderbird Lady. I am not a Thunderbird, but I live among them. And maybe sometime I can come back in a forum and talk about what that means. Moving on from that is my clan, which is the Bear Clan. And that tells folks, my relatives in the room, folks who know something about the culture, about my approach in life and the lessons that I've learned from that spiritual animal and the stories. And so it says something about what to expect from me. And I live in Masabikan, which is the Anishinaabe word for Duluth, and it means giants. And we live in a land where there are giant lakes, giant aquifers, giant rocks. One of the oldest mountain ranges in the United States is right here. That is, I like to open up with that just to offer a gift to all of you if you have not been in front of the Anishinaabe language. So the Duluth Art Institute. Meredith, you sent me a survey, and the folks who responded, about 80% of you are familiar with the Duluth Art Institute. So let me go into a little bit of background. About 117 years ago, there was a collective of folks in Duluth that really wanted, with all their heart, to make sure that visual art had a home in the region. They were people that valued and appreciated visual art through the Western lens, and knew that their appreciation and their interaction with it could really change their lives. It brought them joy, it could invoke sadness, it could invoke narratives that they wouldn't usually talk about, or even invoke questions around something that might seem very common. And so they created essentially an art school. And over time, that art school then grew into an art institute. And it was called it still is actually the formal name, the Duluth Art Institute Association, because we have a membership. And so we are different than some nonprofits that are institutes, organizations, but the term association really does mean a lot. And it means a lot because it means we are working with community. And so it's important that the organization keep the community in mind. So over time, the art exhibitions that would occur in Duluth happened without bricks and mortar. They were in people's homes. The art exhibitions were in public spaces like City Hall, the city jail, hospitals. And so people would be invited to be around the art no matter what was happening in their life, because the value associated with visual art was held so high. So around 50 years ago, a group of people in Duluth noticed that the depot on Michigan Street was actually set up for demolition. And what's great is that they recognized that it's the only French chateau architecture in Duluth, and they came together to save it. And they saved it on the premise that it would provide space for the community to enjoy art, culture, and history. So organizations like the Duluth Art Institute, the Playhouse, the Railroad Museum, the Historical Society became sort of the charter members of that building and went into an agreement that we would operate through our budgets the charge to bring, for instance, visual art to the community, or the Historical Society to bring history and culture into the community. So the organizations in the building that were placed there made a commitment that we do the fundraising, we do the donation asks, we would function as nonprofits and provide to the region this wonderful opportunity. And so that's how the Duluth Art Institute found its home in the Depot, and that's sort of a really short 117-year history. Some of the things that the Duluth Art Institute provided for much of this history are art exhibitions, artist talks, classes in all different medium types in visual art. When the organization moved into the Depot, its first clay studio was formed, and so then there were a place for potters and ceramicists who couldn't afford this expensive equipment to have a community where they shared the equipment. And so we still do a lot of those things yet today. I'm going to move through the PowerPoint a little bit. Oh,
yeah.
do I know how to do that?
I'm going to try to figure out what's going on here with the PowerPoint. It doesn't seem to want to advance.
Is the PowerPoint being shared?
Yes, it.
Okay.
But I think I'll stop and reshare so
Okay.
that.
Okay. Well, I've been doing a whole lot of talking, and I have had a few questions from some of the folks facing me, and maybe while we're looking for the PowerPoint technology, we can go into some of your questions. One question I had for Jean was, so are you folks just like busy packing right now, or what's going on? So I'll give you a little update. The Duluth Art Institute has found its new temporary location in the US Bank building on Superior Street.
You can advance.
Okay, great, thank you. And yes, we are busy packing. So the space that we are moving into it's really beautiful and dynamic and has a beautiful view of the Central Hillside, and we're so excited to be showing art in this space and bringing artists and you to experience what it feels like to see the talent of our upcoming exhibitions on view in this space. So we anticipate moving all of our stuff on April 30th. We're gonna take a little break though. We're gonna just quiet our operations down and give the team some time to breathe and I guess kind of go dark, except, we'll be working on stuff on the business side. But we're gonna hold off on any exhibitions in the space until about mid-June. We're not quite sure yet. Once we know our confirmed move-in date, then we'll be able to set up some schedules after that. So that's what we're doing right now, Jean, is we are moving, like we're going through and packing and sorting and all the things that happen when any of us have ever moved, and we have to look at all the stuff we've collected over 50 years. So thank you for that question. Any other questions before I move on into a few slides? Yeah, Bernie. Yes.
I'm so comfortable going to the location. Where do I park when I want to go? I mean, maybe that's not your problem. But when I want to go to the New Art Institute, where do I park?
So the question's about parking.
That question about parking is my problem, 100%. So just to help you be familiar with the US Bank building downtown, it is across the street from the North Shore Bank building, and it is a block east from the Holiday Center. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so the parking will be in the ramp at the Holiday Center, and then you can walk the block through the Skyway or go all the way down and walk in through the street level as well. So the Skyway is an option, and then also the street level, you'll be able to go in through the building doors and then get to the 4th floor, and you'll be able to find us that way. So we are actually looking forward to being part of the Skyway system because we've received a lot of concern about getting from the parking lot at the depot into the building during the winter. And so we're actually kind of excited to have our galleries on the Skyway. Yes?
When you say temporary, what do you mean by temporary?
Ooh, what do I mean by temporary? I keep looking at Claudia, she's on my board. We are so excited about the work that we are doing in St. Paul right now. We have a $5 million bonding grant ask with the state of Minnesota. There's no guarantee we'll get it. I think it is on the trajectory to be more on the 60 or 70% side of success right now. We were kind of sitting at a 50-50. But what we want to do with this $5 million is fix up the Lincoln Park building. It has a lot of cosmetic needs, which will eventually become structural if we're not able to attend to it. And we're hoping to add on to the Lincoln Park building, our gallery space. And so we are hoping that we have this bonding grant opportunity. We're hoping that we get the $5 million, and then it'll take a few years for design, for the zoning, and all of the different things that come with a construction project of that size. So we're hoping to build.
Should we be writing our representatives?
Yes, that's a great call to action. So I'll talk a little bit about the support we have. It's a bill, so our bipartisan bill, our bill is very bipartisan. We have strong Republican support and strong Democratic support for this effort. It's being viewed as like the best opportunity for everybody to spend money on something that is really valuable and everybody can benefit from. And so we have that momentum, and it doesn't hurt to call Liz Olson, Leish Kozlowski, Jen McEwen, and just make sure that they know you know about it and that you support it and why you view it as something, as an asset for our region. Yes, that'd be great. You can also call other representatives in our legislature as well. So Roger Scraba, Republican from Ely, is a super champion of the bill. The board president, Robin Washington, and I are hoping to meet with Senator Pappas on Friday to make sure that she's fully aware and she understands what we're asking for and how this is really about preserving an asset for our region. There was a question back here.
Just a quick ask, we could probably just answer questions from now on.
Yeah.
Would you like to do a little more presentation?
I'm good because this all has to do with identity and culture, right?
Okay.
So the Duluth Art Institute has been part of the Duluth identity for 117 years. I mean, you have people like in the documents, Mrs. Tweed and Mrs. Condon supporting the Duluth Art Institute. There are comments and quotes that they have made about the absolute necessity of having a nonprofit visual arts organization that is not tied to a college or an academic venue, because we can do things differently when we don't have a board of regents looking over our shoulder. I kind of think, I see your hand up, I kind of think part of the reason we're being told to leave the depot is because we do work on visual art exhibitions that tell absent narratives, and I think that has offended some of our county commissioners. I will just say that. Yes, there was a question back here.
Your emphasis on art and color reminds me, does the written word fall under your umbrella? Because I remember going to a workshop that Nevada Bar did many years ago. And I thought that that was sponsored by the Art Institute. Do you continue to support the written word as well as the beauty of the pictures?
We value all art in the ecosystem. Film, poetry, story, performance, all of it. Like, the Duluth Art Institute is part of that ecosystem. Our focus is contemporary fine art, but you know very well, I can tell from your question, that that does also include the written word. So where you will find that is, of course, in the way in which we write about art, which you'll see in the magazine. We have writers that are not within the Duluth Art Institute that contribute. We also are very thoughtful about the didactics that we write with bodies of work that are on view. Now, bodies of work may also include the written word, and artists will use that within their bodies of work in a number of different ways. One of my favorite ways is ekphrastic artwork, and that is the art of visual and the poetry that goes along with it. I'm gonna apologize because I'm gonna like fly through my slides for a second. Okay, this bus is a great example of incorporating the written word into art. How are you like wondering where's the words? The Duluth Art Institute recently published our second book called Black Swallowtail, and we published that work of art. We published it on the work of art of Tecumseh T. Aiken, who is an artist from the Twin Cities, and poet Arleta Little, who is the executive director of the Loft Literary Center. So we venture into the recognition and inclusion of the written word when artists are using that in their artwork. We used to have a workshop, which I did in 2018 and 2019, that brought together writers in the Duluth area to help develop people who can write about visual art, because we miss that. We used to have it, and there's fewer and fewer writers who are actually writing about visual art in a way that engages people. Sometimes there's a lot of $10 and $15 words in people's writing. So my workshop was really more about how does the personality of an artist flow through writing? How does using, staying away from words that may not be completely familiar to most people that might be associated with art. So that's another reason this publication came out, is because we find so much value in the words that are used around visual art that we need to include it in the organization. So the publication, and then of course you experience that that dynamic through our artist talks as well. Our publishing of books is really about publishing art books. And so if along with that is the writing, we're not focused on like publishing a poetry book, for instance. We want to match that with an artist and have that experience be blended together. Does that answer your question? Claudia, your hand was up, and then I'm going to go back to Jean.
Sorry, I heard Christina from behind me that where the heck is the Lincoln Park building? So could you tell us?
Yes, our Lincoln Park building. I don't have a picture of it. Oh wait, maybe I do, hang on. That's the inside of our Lincoln Park building. This building was purchased 25 years ago from the city of Duluth. It was a city library in Lincoln Park, and it's a Carnegie, some people say Carnegie, some people say Carnegie building. So it was designed by the architect. This is located sort of up the hillside of the Craft District in Lincoln Park. So on 2nd Street, so Superior Street is the Craft District in Lincoln Park. I can't call it West Duluth because that's a different area. And so if you go a couple blocks up, you'll run into this place. It looks like a library. It's really very beautiful inside. So it's 2229 West 2nd Street. So we're on the 23rd Avenue and the 2nd Street in Lincoln Park. Jean.
Well, I would like to share how valuable the Art Institute has been to me. I remember a long time ago I finished my undergraduate degree, it took me 25 years, but I took a class from G, so I did some watercolor, but it was very sporadic. And the very first class I took at the Art Institute, that was, the actual Art Institute there, was with Betsy Kuth, and we did watercolors. However, later on, I got to, I never ran real sporadic because of the work I was doing and stuff like that. And finally, I ended up with a job where I worked 6 hours a day, and I wouldn't get any emergency phone calls or anything. And so I started signing up for a bunch of classes. I've taken at least 3 classes from Lee England doing plein air. And then I started doing acrylics with Dave Swinson. And I've probably taken 12 classes from him. And then more classes from other different artists, and quite a few of them are down at that building there too. And so I swear I must have done at least 24 classes. And it really, number one, taking a class motivates me to paint. If I didn't have a class, it'd be like, sporadic. And so I value the classes in particular, just incredible. And I think one of the most fun events I like to go to is the annual membership show, because there is one piece that all the artists shows, and it is just amazing. And everybody shows up for the big reception. So it's just incredible experience, and I really appreciate that.
We love the annual member show. It showcases between 150 and about 250 artists in our region and beyond. We do have members of the Duluth Art Institute that are out in the nation and out in the world. And it showcases one piece of art from every current member who would like to put art in the show. That's the only criteria, is you need to be a member, and it's amazing. It's really, it's so moving when you see a collection of artwork and you start to connect the dots with the depth of talent that we have in our region. It blows my mind. Every year I keep saying, this is the best one yet. Every year it's like, this is the best one yet. So we really appreciate that you're participating in that, and that will be our first body of work, our first show in the new space, yes. I want to talk about this picture a little bit. This is Jonathan Thunder. This was a class in oil paint where the instructor brought in a live model playing the accordion. And why, in my mind, I've never painted before, I thought this was the class for me. I walked in and I saw Jonathan. I'm like, I've never picked up a palette knife. Are you kidding? The instructor, Matt Kanya, walked over to me and he said, just hang in there. You're gonna do just fine. So I didn't know how to mix colors. I didn't know the viscosity of oil paint is, oh my gosh, I love it. But everything was turning out gray. I couldn't get gold or, we didn't get to bring gold paint. We had to make our colors. So anyway, I've had this up here because the education piece of the organization is vital to our area. We have artists like Jonathan who tried his hand at oil painting with the Duluth Art Institute. He's an acrylic painter. He's been doing a little bit more in oil. But it's the opportunity for people to come in at any level and really give it a try. We have a course for 7th graders called the Birkenstein Art Movement. This is built on the history of Jean Birkenstein, who participated in the civil rights in Chicago. She had an affiliation with Martin Luther King Jr. when he was a very young man, and helping, along with I think 4 other women, kind of teach him about what protest is and how to effectively do it. So she was an art teacher, and also Robin Washington's mother. And he would tell me all these stories about her and how she would use art, pictures of Robin as a 6-year-old with protest art. And I thought, you've got 7th graders in Duluth who get 0 minutes of art. And we have these 7th graders in Duluth who are really at that brain development stage of loving or hating school. And you take something away that allows them to fully explore their creativity and fully explore the value of failure. And you're just going to create some depth of animosity when kids can't connect to something new that gives them space to learn about their learning. So I created the Birkenstein Art Movement, and we got it funded through the State Arts Board the first year that we had it. It provided a group of 27th graders the opportunity to learn how to throw clay on a wheel, what mixed media art was, how to sketch, what the butterfly in Mexico City meant as far as protest art. They got to meet the mayor, the chief of police. They got to talk about the problems in their neighborhoods and sit down with these leaders in decision making to find out, what can we do about the condition of Lincoln Park, the park. We go there and we feel like we're risking our lives because it's dangerous. Not just because of it being a refuge for people who are unhoused. That wasn't the danger. It was the geography and the fact that you could actually fall over the side and end up in the river and hit a rock, which some of them had done. So we provided this venue for 7th graders who have just a biological, developmental predisposition to be a little bit mouthy, to actually channel that and learn through art how to fail, what's an asset, what's a deficit, what happened when the clay was too dry, that would be a deficit. We need to make sure our materials work, and apply that to making change in the community. And they played an integral role in Lincoln Park getting fixed. And so the program is still in existence. We have many more youth that are not mainly struggling with barriers with race and poverty, but now struggling with barriers that they face with gender identity and people deliberately disregarding their pronouns. So we have trans kids, queer kids, LGBTQ, all the kids are showing up for this. It's free. For this free experience to really try and make change in the community where they collectively decide on something they want to have an impact on. You'll see some of their artwork in the last cohort around Duluth on the electrical boxes, because they wanted Duluth to know that 7th graders make art and it's really, really good. So in talking about that a little bit, sometimes we look at visual art, and with many things, we want it to check all the boxes of what does an artist look like who's accomplished. And these kids wanted to say, we're accomplished. Our art was accepted by the Duluth Public Arts Commission to be public art in the city of Duluth. And so they wanted to sort of disrupt and break open the colonized ideology around what accomplishment looks like. Yeah, so there's Jonathan. That was an intimidating first day for me, but I loved that I got to learn right alongside him.
I'll just break in here and say we've got a couple more minutes for questions, and Christina has said that she's willing to stay a few minutes later to talk to anyone who didn't get their question in. And I feel like there was one other thing I was going to say, but I forgot what it was.
Well, I do not want to pass this by and make sure that I talk about one of our most important programs at the Duluth Art Institute, and that's our clay studio. And Linda is here, and she has been a member of that studio for so long, and it's so wonderful. And the reason it's so important is because let me go back. I don't have a picture of the clay studio. I really should. What we do is we subsidize rent for artists. We have 40 artists that rent space in the studio. So we subsidize rent. For an artist to have an active experience with clip pottery and ceramics, they need space to store stuff, tools, clay, projects they're working on, and it takes up a lot of space. So if an artist is going to try and accommodate this in their own home, they are also navigating the very real toxins that come around having clay. So clay has silica in it. That's a really tough thing to be having in your house. And then also the glazes have a toxicity base to them as well. And so when you're part of a community where you can keep that material out of your home, plus have access to a huge gas kiln and 4 electric kilns, a pug mill, we're getting a new extruder, we're doing a whole bunch of ADA stuff, we're buying a bunch of ADA stuff for the studio because we have artists whose hands don't work as well, so they need equipment to help with that. They need backs on the stools, they need the stools to go up and down, and so we're moving into some new equipment. But the reason this studio is so important is because it is incredibly expensive to have one of these studios in your home. And this is one of the most important ways that we help artists in our community with the opportunity to continue their practice. Whether they sell something or not, that's not what's important. It's the continuation of the artistic practice that is so valuable. And we're just so proud that, for $1,200 something a year, an artist can be in that space as many days, 24/7 as they want. So we're just really proud of that opportunity.
I also learned something pretty recently about the pots for these Norfolk pines, which is that Linda made them with her own hands and heart. And I don't know if she made them at the DAI, but do come and look at them if you haven't already. Maybe everybody knew that, but me.
Can you imagine the size of the kiln you need to
Yes.
I want to read something because I like it. It is written by Kurt Vonnegut, and I found it on the social media in a stream I follow called American Literature. He says, and I believe this so thoroughly, go into the arts. I'm not kidding. The arts are not a way to make a living. They are a very human way of making life more bearable. Practicing an art, no matter how well or badly, is a way to make your soul grow. For heaven's sake, sing in the shower, dance in the rain, tell a story, write a poem, give it to a friend, even if it's lousy. Do it as well as you possibly can, and you will feel the enormous reward. You will have created something. And I cannot tell you how strongly I believe in that sentiment. I have found art to be incredibly useful in my life. I used art when I was a teacher. I taught for 20 years in the Stillwater school system. And my first year, I had a really, really hard classroom of first and second graders. I had 5 paraprofessionals in my classroom assigned to children full-time with learning disabilities and emotional deregulation issues. And I couldn't get them to get along. Fresh out of college, 0 classroom management experience, and these kids were just fighting all the time. So I brought art into the classroom, copies of Picasso or whatever I could find, and I'd sit them down and I'd say, so what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And they'd start this little argument thing. And that's where I realized, ooh, we can talk about how to disagree right now. And I can start teaching them the tools on how to disagree about art. And it was not very long after there'd be an argument on the playground, they'd come in, of course they're gonna tell me about it, and then immediately they'd be so proud. Because what they really wanted to tell me is that they knew how to disagree. Remember that time, Ms. Woods, when we saw that piece of art and it was the ugliest thing I thought I ever saw? And we disagreed about it. I used those same words and we figured out our problem. So art has been an integral part of my life. Just very quickly, I want to tell you about art in the Anishinaabe culture. Number 1, there is no word for art in Anishinaabe-Moen. You cannot separate art from your day-to-day life. It is part of everything we do. There was no concept of art. It just was. How could you ever live without creating something that people are, going to talk about, or it represents something else, or, the word art never existed. This is my dress. I made it 30 years ago, 35 I think, and this picture was taken, I think, last summer at the Lake Vermilion powwow. I had a vision, I had a dream about this dress. It took me probably 3 years to find the leather to use for it, and it took me almost 2,000 hours to make. And it is the only dress I own, although I am also a ribbon skirt maker and a quilter, and I do beadwork. I've taught my children a number of things in that genre. But anyway, this is what I wore yesterday. Thank you, Linda, for your kind compliment. But this is, how can you, maybe you can see why art is not a word in our language. It doesn't exist, just like the word goodbye doesn't exist. There's no word for goodbye. The best we can do is say, see you later. So, Gigawaba Min, Minawa, I'll see you again.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. I wish we could go on forever. I was telling Christina earlier that this amount of time always feels inadequate. So I'm going to give a quick plug for next week. We are going to have Clinton Nienhuis with us, and he is the naturalist at Saxon Bog. So that's something great to look forward to. Please do stick around and talk with Christina before the service. And please join the Duluth Art Institute if you're not already a member of this nationally recognized organization. And yeah, send some love.
Yeah, we've definitely become nationally recognized on the basis of decolonization. I mean, when Glenn Lowry, that phone call I got the first time from the guy who runs the MoMA, he was like, hi Christina, are you sitting down? I'm like, I am, because I saw MoMA. And he says, this is Glenn Lowry, the president and CEO. And I'm like, oh, hi. And so we've had a monthly meeting for a while just on the constructs of race and the practice around the construct of entitlement and white privilege, and how the MoMA can be working with their language and how they tell the story about art, how they handle pieces in their collection. They've started calling their objects belongings now. That's a big shift in museums, is that when especially items that have come out of tribal communities, that even if it's artwork, that they're called belongings, and that they're treated as such, and that there's an understanding about the intimate relationship that somebody has put into the creation of something and how it becomes a living thing. So